Welcome in to Greenville Grit. This is Greenville Residents in Touch with your hosts, Terry Williams and Michael Overton. This is the show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Greenville Toyota, the Overton Group, and Bill Clark Homes. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to the Greenville Grit. I am Terry Williams and I have a very special co-host tonight sitting in for Michael Overton, Thomas Taft. Thank you, Thomas.
Hey, Terry, thank you.
We appreciate it so much. We also have a very special guest with us tonight. Congressman Walter Jones will be joining us in just a few minutes. But before we do that, let's go and thank our sponsors. We have Bill Clark Homes. If you're looking for a brand new home in a numerous amount of neighborhoods in the Greenville area, they can help you with a new home. We appreciate Greenville Toyota's constant support, and if you are looking for a new or used vehicle, you can contact Greenville Toyota. And also the Overton Group. Michael has continued to support our efforts here, and they offer commercial, residential, and business brokerage, and I believe a new construction services division as well. So we thank our sponsors. We could not do it without them. We thank them very much. So we're going to go to a quick break so we can get right back with Walter Jones and hear what he has to say today about his re-election efforts.
Good evening and welcome back to the Greenville Grit. Today, Terry and I have the unique pleasure of introducing a name that you will all recognize here in Eastern North Carolina, Representative Walter B. Jones, our current congressman from the 3rd District. Congressman Jones, thank you so much for being here, and if you could just give us an idea of why you're running for another term.
Well, Thomas, thank you for the opportunity, as Terry as well. 2015, as you know, our country is not in the strongest economic situation as I would like to see it, and I believe sincerely that we're going to have some very, very difficult issues coming before us in 2015. If I'm fortunate enough to get reelected, I will be number 2 on the Armed Services Committee on the Republican side. I will sit right beside the chairman. If the Republicans hold the House, it will be Mac Thornberry from Texas will be chairman, and I will be right beside him in seniority on the Republican side. Senator Chuck Hagel, now Secretary of Defense, has already made the statement that in 2015 will be the reorganization of our military with many very difficult decisions to be made because of the budget shortfalls. Because I will be a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, I cannot say anything else but this. I will be at the discussion table as to the proposals that will be forthcoming. If I was a freshman, I would not be at the table. But being a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, it will put me at the main table to talk about options and what will be forthcoming nationally, as well as the bases in Eastern North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that from an economic standpoint, those bases are critical to the economic future of Eastern North Carolina and our state of North Carolina.
That's right, and economically and safety as well. And
absolutely.
So, that's right. So that's what I think it's so important, and where you are, you've just really said it in a nutshell with protecting our bases. Absolutely.
Well, Terry, what it does, I don't know what the proposals are going to be until the proposals are made public, but I know this, that we are in what I call a very bad financial shape as the country is. We know that we're going to have to make changes. We have spent over $1.5 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan. I am actually working across the aisle now with Jim McGovern from Massachusetts to have an amendment in June that will say that we will not continue this 10-year bilateral strategic agreement that the president has offered to the Afghan leadership for 10 more years of spending billions of dollars every month, when we can't even fix the potholes in Greenville or Farmville, North Carolina.
Exactly. You're exactly
and
right.
It's time for this country, but because of the economic problems facing our country, I have great respect for Secretary of Defense Hagel And I know he's got a tough job to do, is to make sure we rebuild our military and take a different approach as we rebuild the military. But I just want to be there to make sure that when the discussion comes up about the futures of bases in America, and especially Eastern North Carolina, that I will be at the table for that discussion. And that's what seniority will do for us.
Congressman Jones, I just think I second Terry's opinion on that. And sometimes in Greenville, even we don't recognize how important the military bases in our region are. And if you go to a place like Jacksonville or Havelock or Fayetteville, I mean, the presence there is so immense and so wonderful what they do with their community. I think it would be a disaster to lose any of them. And I think you feel the same way. So I think we're quite lucky to have you on that important position.
Thomas, you're very kind. Last Thursday, it was an official trip. I had planned to go down to the depot several months ago to visit the rework facility where they do really outstanding work, and they are busy as they've ever been. That's 3,200 jobs. Wow. And if there should be a situation in 2015, and I am fortunate enough to be reelected, then I will be there to help defend and tell the story of the successes, of our civilian workforce, both at Cherry Point and Camp Lejeune.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, that would bring me to a question about the support you show us all the time for our veterans. Could you please speak to that? And recently, I believe there was a ribbon cutting here. Maybe you'd like to mention that as well.
Well, Terry, thank you, and Thomas as well. That's, I think, one of the greatest thrills I've had since I have been fortunate enough to be a congressman, and that was to see the evolution of that medical center that's now been opened in Greenville, North Carolina. And it's the state of the art. It is a medical facility that veterans from all over Eastern North Carolina, instead of having to go to Durham, they can go to Greenville. And the VA has worked out a working relationship with the School of Medicine, the nursing school, and the dental school. So just like they've done at Duke University in Durham for the VA hospital in Durham. So we're going to have the same type of relationship except it would be with East Carolina University.
Again, I just think that you can't overstate that relationship too. You know, you don't just take a VA center and a super center, in fact, and place it in the middle of nowhere that doesn't have the resources that a healthcare cap or center like Greenville has. So I just think that made incredible sense. And folks that were having to drive 2-3 hours even to Durham to a an overused hospital at that point anyways. I mean, it's wonderful to have it here in Eastern North Carolina.
Thomas, that's a great point. And Terry, that this is, I mean, if the day of the ribbon cutting, they had close to 300 people there. Mm-hmm. And the excitement in talking to the veterans who have earned that right to have that care right there in Greenville was really humbling and exciting to listen to them talk about how important this was for them to be able to have this clinic there in Greenville.
Yes, sir.
Well, Walter, are there other issues that you in particular would like to cover today? We certainly want to give you an opportunity. Maybe Obamacare is one. I'm just not sure, but we would like for you to just tell us issues you think are facing us here in Eastern North Carolina and throughout the nation that you would like to cover today.
Terry, there are 2 or 3 issues, one being the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, some people say, including the president himself. My belief was always that, yes, we have different issues facing all of us who have insurance and need health care, but the taking over the health care system by the federal government was not the right way to do it. I'm hopeful that my party in June or July will have what they call repeal and replacement bill. We need to show the American people how we would like to try to fix the health care issues facing all of us in Eastern North Carolina as well across the nation. And I think that's going to really present a very great opportunity for us to have the debate of the changes that we would have made if we had been the majority, and meaning the White House as well. Right. But there are certain aspects that we need to look at. Affordable care is one, extended care for those who are still in college, and I think there's going to be an opportunity to, if we could change the Senate, I think there are things that we could do, even with President Obama in office to make changes that would benefit the people of Eastern North Carolina and the American people. But right now, I want to see my party put a bill on the floor in the summer and show the people of Eastern North Carolina and the American people that we do have good ideas when it comes to health care.
Exactly.
Again, I think that's very well stated and incredibly important to make sure that everybody knows that it's not just a plan to repeal Obamacare. It is a plan to replace it or at least pieces of it with something that many would say is a better idea and a more streamlined, efficient way of doing things. And I think that it's incredibly important for the other side to get that on the floor.
Thomas, thank you. I think you and Terry, we all would agree on that. It's a matter that we do have an issue that the problems that need to be addressed. I've had doctors, I've had nurses, I've had hospital administrators, I've had patient advocates over the last 2 years. I've met with a couple of hundred, and I'm not exaggerating, over a 2-year period of time who have been in here and said, listen, we got problems in the healthcare delivery system. We need to address them, but we don't need the federal government to take it over. And I feel that way about many things. I'm a states' rights type congressman. Whenever you can give the power back to the people, give it back to the people. And many times, not just talking about the healthcare issues, but other issues as well. And I'll tell you something else, Terry, you were asking me and Thomas. We need to get this economy stimulated. And that's something that we continue to have to work on because I've worked across political aisles in stopping some of these trade agreements because every time that we pass these trade agreements, and I don't usually vote for them, we seem to send more jobs overseas than we receive. And many times that I look at some of the textiles mills that are not in eastern North Carolina, but the Piedmont, and a few maybe in eastern North Carolina, but most of them in the Piedmont. And what's happened over the last 20 years since I've been in office is to see a great manufacturing nation known as America sell itself out to foreign countries because they could then pay workers 50 cents to 75 cents an hour. That's not what we should be doing. We should be giving tax credits to industry that stay here to create jobs here, and let's build those jobs back for the American people and the people of Eastern North Carolina.
Absolutely. Speaking of stimulating the economy, and there's a lot of obviously different ideas out there. I think one that you may have some insight on is the Keystone Pipeline. Is that something that you'd care to share a couple of thoughts with
Thomas,
us?
I have always supported the opening of the Keystone Pipeline, and there are debates on both sides of the issue, but I have friends both parties that are from that part of America, and they believe that it can be done safely and can be done in a way that would protect the environment and the water system, and it would create jobs. And I just feel like at this point in America's history that we need to, and of course the president will make the final decision. There's been a recommendation that he should move forward on it, but it will still come down to his making the final decision. But some people have estimated it could create almost 42,000 jobs.
Wow.
Not all those would be permanent for years and years, but in the short term, that's a lot of jobs that could help people.
Absolutely.
And help us be more energy
independent. Right.
Exactly.
Well, especially with what's going on right now with our friend Mr. Putin. I mean, he is really making every effort to put a strangle on some natural gas supplies. So it would be incredibly important, I think, for us to be able to be more independent here.
Absolutely. Well, Walter, is there anything else you want to bring to our attention or talk about the upcoming election? It's so important that people remember to go and vote and don't take anything for granted.
Well, sir, Terry, truthfully, that is, Thomas, that is true. And the only thing I can say after 20 years, I have one of the best staffs in America, both in Greenville and Washington, D.C. We do so much work with the people who have a need to call a congressional office. And I've got people in Greenville and in Washington who care about doing the right thing to help people when they have a need. And I would say that I vote my conscience up here in Washington. My daddy told me that years ago. Of course, he died in 1992, but he always said, vote your conscience first, your constituency second. And your party third, and that's what I try to do, and I get criticized for it, but I try to do what I think's right. I'm a strong man of faith. In fact, tonight, after I do this interview, I'll be going over to Georgetown University and speaking to children, not children, but young people there at Georgetown about my faith.
That's great. That is great to hear. Yes, I know anyone who's interested in really getting the full-blown effect of your office should go and visit your website. I have been on it, and it is walterjonescommittee.com. Is that correct?
That's right.
And it is full of information and facts and the work that you've accomplished and what you have done for Eastern North Carolina, which affects, like we said, our whole entire nation.
Well, I think people know I go home every weekend. I drive home. I wish we had a flight directly into Greenville and Kinston, but we don't. But I go home every weekend because I am one of these type of individuals. I want people to always know I'm a workhorse. I'm not a show horse. I work hard for the people of Eastern North Carolina. I was selected by the Hill magazine 2 years ago. I don't know how they came to this decision, but I was one of 25 of the hardest working men and women in Washington, D.C., and that was the Senate 100 and the House 535, and I was in the top 25 of the hardest working individuals in the Congress. And I'm very humbled by that, but also I'm very proud.
Absolutely, and that makes us proud, and we certainly appreciate, that you serve our community in Washington. And I know this must be a little bit of a difficult time because well, a lot of times we don't have primaries like we're having now for you. You haven't experienced that every election. But last week you were in our area, but of course this week you had to head back up to D.C. to take care of business. So how is that affecting how you're feeling about the primary on May 6th?
Terry, I've moved around quite a bit. I mentioned going down to the depot. Of course, you can't politic on
right. federal
property, and I didn't. I didn't open my mouth about the campaign or anything else. But the negative ads, I've said I am a pro-life member of the House. In fact, the pro-life has given me an A rating, the NRA an A rating, and I received an award 2 weeks ago from the American Conservative Union because of my votes. And these negative ads that have been coming in are just so distorted that it's not even worth trying to discuss them. But if I have 2 minutes, I want to tell one quick vote. They mentioned a vote in 2011 that when the bill was on the House side, we put sanctions on Iran. I voted for it. It goes to the Senate side. It stays over there for several weeks before it comes back. They added Syria to it and sanctions to Syria, and I did not believe that was the right thing to do. So when it came back, I voted no, not because of the sanctions against Iran, but because of sanctions being added to the House bill on Syria. And I did not think that was the right thing to do. But that's part of politics. I've said many times that as a pro-life member of life, I thought that Roe v. Wade was one of the worst decisions made by the Supreme Court, and the second worst was Citizens United, because that's allowed these super PACs to be created and millions of dollars, and it's both sides. It's both sides. And they can spend millions of dollars on ads, and the fact is you hardly know who that group is that puts their name out there.
That's right. I am glad you addressed the ad situation, because that was one of our questions Thomas and I had discussed, because those of us who follow politics either just some or even quite a bit recognize that there are oftentimes parts of bills that you just can't, with your conscience, vote, that the normal public doesn't know are in the bills, but you do, and you're going through them saying, this will work, but this one will not. And then when they run the ads, they pick and choose the portions of something you voted on or something that you have said that isn't the clear picture.
Terry, that's so true. I would say in 20 years, and I'm not exaggerating, I've voted at least 200 times on bills to give Israel the right to exist and protect itself, at least 200 times. So they picked one vote out. And I think the second part of that ad was that he voted president, and I can explain that in 2 minutes. My staff has to help me. We stay so busy up here that my staff has to help me read bills, and if I don't have time, and we discuss the bills and things in it that I might be for, maybe I'm concerned about. And that was one bill that I did not. My staff said to me, Congressman, I didn't get a chance to read the bill. I didn't get a chance to read the bill. It was only 10 pages, but I never had a chance to read it. So I decided I'd vote present. And that way, I think maybe 5 times in 20 years I voted present,
Exactly.
but that was one time.
Exactly.
But I didn't know what was in the bill.
Well, what can you tell us, or what do you think are, say, the pressing, after the election is over in November, what will be the most pressing issues that you'll be concentrating on, if you even know that far ahead?
Well, if I should get reelected again, I think I don't vote for these debt ceiling increases because our country continues. We are what's called a debtor nation. In other words, when you raise the debt ceiling, and I've not voted for a debt ceiling since 1997, and at that time, the debt ceiling of our country was $5.7 trillion. Today, it is over $17 trillion, headed toward $18 trillion in debt. Under George Bush, we raised the debt ceiling 7 out of the 8 years that President Bush was in office. I did not vote for those debt ceilings, but we raised it 7 times under his leadership. Under President Obama, we have raised the debt ceiling 7 times in 5 years. I have not voted for it under President Bush or President Obama. We cannot continue to grow the debt of this nation before we have an economic collapse. I agree with my friend Ron Paul on that.
Right.
You cannot continue to borrow and spend, because at some point in time, the dollar will have no value. And these other countries that have been buying or investing in the dollar will stop investing in the dollar. If we get toward $20 or $21 trillion in debt, then we will follow behind Greece. That's what will happen.
Which is not where we need to be or want to be.
No, and that's one of my biggest concerns. If I should get reelected coming back in 2015, I will continue to be outspoken here in the House of Representatives and saying, why do we continue to borrow money? It's just like working across the aisle with Jim McGovern about Afghanistan. Why are we going to continue to borrow money to spend billions in Afghanistan every month? And the Taliban, who we're fighting now, will eventually take over or have more influence than ever before in the future of Afghanistan. Let's spend the billions of dollars right here in America and rebuild America. That's what needs to happen.
That's exactly right. Well, I know, switching gears just a little bit, we've had an unfortunate storm damage and lives threatened. You might want to address the tornado situation that we had on Friday. I saw that on your website as well.
Well, we are trying. My district office, I spoke to William Moore today driving to Washington. He has been in contact with the different counties that were impacted by the tornadoes and the high winds, and we're working with the leadership in those counties to see what we can do to help. And I know that the state's already gotten involved, and we're just trying to do everything we can to give them all the support that they need, that the federal government and the state can provide to make sure that they can come back.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Walter. Well, we need to take a quick break. Thank our sponsors one more time today, Bill Clark Homes, Greenville Toyota, and the Overton Group, and we'll be right back and let Walter make a final statement before we go off the air. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. We've had an honor to have Congressman Walter Jones with us today, and I believe that he's still with us, and we're going to let him wrap up with any comments that you'd like to end with today, Walter.
Sure. Terry and Thomas, thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of my thoughts and listen to your thoughts as well. And I will say that the election, there's a primary for Republicans, there's a primary for Democrats. And when I think about all the wounded soldiers and Marines that I've seen over at Walter Reed over the last 10 years, and I know what they were willing to sacrifice, the least we can do is to go to the voting place and cast a ballot for whomever you think is the right person, whichever party you might be a part of. Just don't let those who've given so much, their life, their limbs, know that we can't even take the time to walk across the street to cast a ballot. Please.
Exactly.
Yes, and we'd just like to reiterate what Congressman Jones just said. This is one of our true inalienable rights, is the right to vote. Regardless of who you're voting for, what your ideals are, you need to get out there and do it. Not enough people do it. It's embarrassing to see the turnout sometimes.
Amen.
That's exactly right. Well, Walter, thank you again for being with us today. It's just been important for the public to understand what you have done for us in Eastern North Carolina. I believe that your district covers about 22 counties, does it not?
22 counties.
Exactly. That's a lot of area for you to cover, and we so appreciate everything that you've done for us, and we will encourage everyone to get out and vote, and we are definitely, I for one, am definitely supporting you.
Well, thank you so much, and God bless America, and God bless our men and women in uniform. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Walter. We
Bye-bye.
appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
And so we are done. We appreciate Walter Jones joining us today as our guest. And please do visit his website, which I gave out a few minutes ago, but I'll give it again. It is walterjonescommittee.com, and you can really see Walter's total service to our community and to his district, how much he has given, and really does point out in many aspects of what the seniority can do. I know there has been lots of discussion sometimes about term limits, but in this particular case, with the issues that this country is facing that will affect Eastern North Carolina, I think in this particular instance, it's important to have the experience that Walter has.
Absolutely, and you just make an informed decision. Go to the websites, learn for yourself who you think is going to be our best representative, and get out there. I believe May 6th is the primary date.
Early voting's going on now, except on Sunday. So join us again. Thank you much.
Thank you.